family events have always felt like punishment for a crime I don't remember committing. My name's Ethan. I'm 28, the oldest of 3 boys. The invisible one. My youngest brother, Zach, is the golden child. Football captain, fraternity king, tech startup dreamer, you name it. And my parents? Let's just say they orbit around him like he's the damn sun. My middle brother, Jake, doesn't get the full VIP treatment like Zach, but at least they remember to include him in things. Me? I'm the plus one to my own family. So when Zach announced his engagement, I knew I was about to walk into another long day of fake smiles, subtle digs, and being treated like I'm some awkward neighbor who wandered in off the street. What I didn't expect was how low they'd go. The wedding was at this fancy-ass outdoor vineyard. White tents, gold-trimmed glasses, tiny fairy lights everywhere like they were trying to impress Pinterest. My invitation came late. Like really late. A week before the wedding. It looked like someone had scribbled my name in as an afterthought. I should have taken the hint and not gone. But I'm a sucker for closure. And I'd finally been doing well, stable job, side business on Etsy that blew up out of nowhere, and for the first time in my life, confidence. I figured I could handle one day of family awkwardness. What I walked into was straight-up disrespect. After the ceremony, which was actually beautiful, I'll give Zach's fiancée credit for taste, we moved into the reception tent for dinner. Everyone was finding their seats at round tables with named cards, floral centerpieces, and menus that looked more expensive than my monthly rent back in college. I scanned the tables, looking for my name. Nothing. I checked again. Still nothing. Then I saw it. Off to the far edge of the tent, past the last decorated table, was a lone fold-out table. Not even white. Just one of those plastic rental ones you see at church basement bake sales. A single metal chair next to it. And a laminated sign taped to the front. Reserved. And there, standing next to it with a drink in hand and a smug look on his face, was my brother Zach. He raised his glass like a toast and said, loud enough for a few heads to turn, "Sorry, this table's for family only." Then he pointed, directly, at the fold-out by the trash can. "That one's for you, bro." Laughter. Actual laughter. People I hadn't seen since we were kids chuckled behind their champagne flutes. Even my mom gave this awkward little smirk like, "Oh, Zach, you rascal." And you know what I did? I sat down at that ugly plastic table like I was perfectly fine with it. Because something inside me, something patient and very, very cold, told me to wait. So I sat there and watched them. All of them. Laughing, drinking, giving speeches about love and loyalty, pretending they were the picture of happiness. And I waited. Because I knew something they didn't. I'd arrived early. I'd seen the open bar. And I'd heard the event coordinator whispering to the head waiter that the bride's father's card had already been declined once for the caterer deposit. That the groom's side might be covering the balance. And that balance? $3,200. For the reception dinner. Just the food and service. So when dessert was wrapping up and the waiter walked over to my janky little table with a folder in hand, the bill tucked inside, I wasn't surprised when he glanced at the groom's table, then looked at me. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "They said this bill is for you." Everyone turned. Forks froze mid-bite. You could feel the silence pull tight like a drum skin. I smiled. Took a sip of my water. And I said, "Sorry, this table's not with them. I was told I wasn't family. So, not my table." The waiter blinked. Looked back at Zach, whose face had dropped from smirking to pale. And that was just the beginning. The sound that followed my line, "Not my table," wasn't silence. It was worse. It was confusion. People whispering. Chairs scraping. The murmur of guests who suddenly realized they were sitting front row to a family implosion. Zach didn't respond right away. His smirk was gone. He blinked slowly, like his brain was buffering. The waiter, ever the professional, glanced toward the head table. "They pointed me to you, sir. I was told you'd be covering the balance due before dessert." I tilted my head, not breaking eye contact with Zack. You mean the same guy who made me sit by the garbage? Zack laughed nervously. Come on, man. That was a joke. A joke. The same kind of joke I'd been the butt of since I was 12. Your family, he added quickly. We were just messing around. You know how it is. I didn't answer. Not right away. I looked around the tent instead. Dozens of people pretending not to stare. A couple cousins were straight up filming. One uncle gave me a thumbs up. Amanda's bridesmaids exchanged panicked glances with her, who sat stone still beside Zack, like maybe if she didn't move, she could pretend this wasn't her life now. I turned back to the waiter. Like I said. Not my table. The waiter nodded once and turned toward the front. Zack's face turned beet red. Wait, hold on. My dad's supposed to be covering that part. No, I'm not. My dad cut in, arms crossed. We paid for the DJ and flowers. Food was your job. Zack's fiancée hissed something under her breath. Her mom hadn't come, they'd been fighting for months. Amanda had burned that bridge to stick with Zack. Now it looked like that gamble was cashing in the wrong kind of chips. $3,200? She repeated, wide-eyed. I thought this was all squared. It was supposed to be. Zack snapped, and that's when the room got truly awkward. The groom was losing his cool. On his wedding day. Then my mom tried to fix it, the way she always did, by throwing me under the bus. She turned and smiled tightly at the waiter. It's fine, we'll sort it out. Ethan can just cover it, can't you, sweetheart? I just stared at her. You made me sit at a fold-out table by the trash, I said. Remember? Family only. She blinked. Like she hadn't expected that to sting. Like this was still the old Ethan. The quiet one. The doormat. Zack stepped forward. Okay, seriously. Can you just help out this once? I'll pay you back. It's not a big deal. I laughed. And the sound was sharper than I expected. Not a big deal? You humiliated me. On purpose. And now you want me to bail you out like I'm some walking Venmo account? Amanda stood up now, fast. We don't need to cause a scene. The scene already happened, I said. It started when your new husband pointed me toward the trash and told me I wasn't family. Zack flinched. His mouth opened and closed, nothing coming out. So I turned back to the waiter, who still held the bill patiently. Split it, I said. Half to Zack Holden, half to Grant Holden. The one who actually raised him that way. And then I walked back to my fold-out table. Took a sip of water. Watched chaos unfold from my spot by the trash. And for once, I wasn't the one who felt disposable. I wish I could say they handled it with grace. That Zack calmly pulled out his wallet, Amanda held his hand, and they laughed it off like adults. Nope. It took exactly 7 seconds after I sat back down for the shouting to start. What the hell was that? Zack barked, voice sharp enough to cut through the tent. People flinched. A baby started crying. The DJ, who had just queued up some light jazz, froze mid-fade. I didn't even look up. I was too busy buttering a roll that had been dropped off at my little isolation table. Honestly, it wasn't half bad. Amanda tried to whisper shot at Zack, hissing about professionalism, image, and, "You're ruining everything." She looked like a shaken influencer trying to salvage a live stream after spilling red wine on her white couch. The waiter still held the bill. Zack waved him away like he was swatting a fly. "We'll deal with it later," he said, trying to recover. "Let's just enjoy the night." But the damage was done. Nobody was eating anymore. Nobody was smiling. Every guest was on high alert, watching this shiny $20,000 fairy tale wedding turn into a front row seat to family dysfunction. And then my mom made it worse. She stood up and tapped her glass with a spoon. No, she wouldn't. Oh yes, she would. "Can I have everyone's attention?" she said with a forced grin. "Let's refocus on what tonight's really about: love, family, and celebration." She held up her wine glass. To Zach and Amanda, the perfect couple. We are so proud of you, honey. People clapped politely, but it felt off. Hollow. And just when I thought she was done, she kept going. And to everyone here who made today possible. Especially those who supported the planning, the logistics, the expenses. It really does take a village. She looked right at me. That smug little smile. Like she won. Like I was the one who caused the scene. Like I owed her something for simply existing at the edge of her curated reality. That was the moment I realized something. They weren't embarrassed. Not really. They were annoyed. Annoyed that I didn't play along. That I didn't cover the bill and disappear. That I didn't let the humiliation slide, like I always used to. So I stood up again. I didn't clink a glass. I didn't raise my voice. I just walked to the center of the room, where the DJ's mic was sitting unattended. I picked it up. I'd like to say a few words, too. The silence was instant. Even the forks froze. Zach looked panicked. Amanda blinked. My mom's mouth opened slightly, the first sign of uncertainty I'd ever seen on her face. To my brother Zach, I said. Congrats, man. You really pulled it off. You got the venue, the girl, the tent full of people. You even got to decide who counted as family. That's power. You should enjoy it. Some nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. I continued steady. And to my parents, thanks for the invitation. A whole week before the event. Real personal touch. And thanks for letting me know that even after 30 years, I still rank somewhere between a utility bill and the guy who parks the cars. Now it was dead silent. But don't worry. I'm not mad. Actually, I'm relieved. Because tonight showed me exactly where I stand. I raised my glass. So here's to the happy couple. And here's to everyone else who ever felt like they had to sit at the trash can table. I see you. And then I put the mic down and walked out of the tent. No yelling. No storming. Just a quiet exit. Because that was the toast they'd never forget. You'd think after a public mic drop like that, they'd get the message. You'd think wrong. I didn't even make it back to my car before my phone started buzzing like it owed someone money. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts. The Holden family panic machine was now in full meltdown mode. By the time I got home, our family group chat, hilariously titled, Team Holden Blue Heart Flexed Biceps, was blowing up. I'd been left on scene in that chat for 3 years. Now suddenly, I was the main character. What the hell was that, Ethan? That was your brother's wedding. Dad? Very immature. You embarrassed all of us. Zach, you just humiliated me in front of my wife's entire sorority. Real classy, man. Again. You've always been so dramatic. You could have just pulled us aside. Zach, this is why no one includes you. You always make things about you. I stared at the screen, jaw tight. Funny how none of them cared when I sat alone like a rejected DoorDasher at the damn fold-out. But now that I'd refused to pay their $3,200 debt and called them out, suddenly I was the one who ruined the wedding. What really got me, though, was Amanda. She messaged me directly. Amanda. Hey. I know things got tense tonight. I just want you to know I didn't agree with what Zach did. The whole seating thing wasn't my idea. I stared at her message for a minute, not sure how to respond. Because here's the thing, I believed her. Amanda had always seemed decent. Smart. Way too smart for someone like Zach. She was one of those people who made eye contact, remembered small details, actually listened. I never understood why she married him. I still don't. I didn't answer her. Instead, I backed out of the group chat and muted it. Let them scream into the void. I had better things to do, like sleep. Which, surprise, I didn't. Because the next day, the real show started. First came the apology texts, not to me, but about me. My cousin Jenna, one of the bridesmaids, DM'd me a screenshot from her friend's Instagram story. A guest at the wedding had posted a clip of my speech. It had over 40,000 views in less than 12 hours. The caption? When the disrespected brother pulls out receipts at the wedding # mic drop # not my table. It spread like wildfire. Some TikTok influencer reposted it with a dramatic voiceover. Then another girl did a full wedding etiquette breakdown calling my move the most satisfying act of social justice since Ross said we were on a break. People were choosing sides online like it was the Super Bowl. Team Ethan versus Team Zach, the trash table king. Guess which one was trending? My phone was blowing up with strangers thanking me for standing up for the forgotten siblings of the world. DMs flooded in from people who'd been benched at weddings, forgotten at Thanksgivings, erased from family albums. One woman told me she watched my clip on loop while eating revenge lasagna. I don't even know what that is, but I love her. It was funny. And then it wasn't. Because that night, I got a call from Amanda. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Hey Ethan. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. What Zach did was cruel, and I should have said something. I didn't know about the bill situation until after. I'm trying to fix it, but anyway. Just call me if you want to talk. Please. I played the message twice. And I felt that old tug, the one that always whispered, maybe they're sorry this time. Maybe this is the turning point. But I knew better. I'd been down that road too many times. Apologies only came when the consequences hit their doorstep. Still, something about Amanda's voice, tired, honest, almost embarrassed, stuck with me. Not because I forgave her. Not yet. But because I had a feeling. Zach's golden child image was starting to crack. And I wasn't done watching it fall apart. When someone leaves you a message like Amanda did, you're not sure if it's a trap or a white flag. I didn't call her back. I wasn't ready to talk. But I didn't block her either. The next morning, she texted again. Do you have a minute? I waited 2 hours before I replied. What do you want? She replied almost immediately. Not to fix anything. Just to be honest with someone. And that's how I found myself sitting across from my brother's brand new wife at a coffee shop 48 hours after their wedding. Amanda didn't look like a bride. She looked like someone who hadn't slept. Her makeup was minimal, eyes puffy, hair tied back in a bun that said I didn't even try. She didn't start with small talk. First of all, she said, I didn't know about the seating. I just raised an eyebrow. Seriously, she insisted. I sent Zach a spreadsheet with the seating chart. I included you at the table with his cousins. He said he'd update it with the planner. I had no idea until I saw you sitting out there. I didn't say anything. Just sipped my coffee. And when I confronted him about it later that night, he laughed. Said I was overreacting. That you always take things personally. I almost smiled. That sounded like Zach. Amanda leaned forward, lowered her voice. He's been different lately. Dismissive. Controlling. I ignored it while we were planning the wedding. Told myself it was stress. But after what he did to you, I don't know. I can't unsee it. I studied her face. This wasn't performative guilt. This wasn't damage control. This was a woman watching the facade she married into crumble brick by brick. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I feel like I made a huge mistake. She said it flatly. No tears. Just a raw, exhausted confession. My mom didn't come to the wedding, she added. Not because she hates Zach, but because she warned me. Said he had red flags. That I was too eager to settle down, to lock in a life. I told her she was being dramatic. She looked down at her cup. Turns out she was just being right. We sat in silence for a moment. Did he ever apologize to you? She asked. I laughed, short and sharp. He texted me 2 hours after the wedding. Said I ruined his night and embarrassed the family. Then he sent me a Venmo request for half the food bill. Her eyes widened. You're kidding. I pulled out my phone and showed her. The request read, Zach Holden, Wedding dinner expense, $1,600. Amanda stared at the screen for a long time. Then, without a word, she pulled out her phone and texted someone. I didn't ask who. But a minute later, her screen lit up with a reply. She read it, then looked at me and said, "That's it. I'm done." The next part came fast. That same night, Amanda posted a photo from the wedding, just her, no Zach. Captioned, "Sometimes happily ever after starts with a reality check." It didn't go viral. But people noticed. Then she changed her profile name back to her maiden name. Then the stories started. Screenshots. Snippets. Zach yelling at her behind the tent. Zach blaming her for the failed payment. Zach complaining that she ruined the vibe. After my speech, one of her bridesmaids, apparently a close friend, posted a long thread about how Amanda had been treated like a prop in her own wedding. That Zach refused to include her in financial planning. That he'd maxed out a credit card paying for a custom tux rental. To look like money. The internet did what it always does. And Zach? He deleted all his accounts within 24 hours. I didn't reach out to Amanda again. She didn't owe me anything. But that night, she sent me one last message. "Thank you. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You woke me up." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. But it was enough. Because sometimes, the best revenge doesn't come from yelling. It comes from letting people destroy their own image. And handing them the mic. The irony didn't hit me until about 3 days later. After years of being forgotten, ignored, and sidelined, I suddenly couldn't get 5 minutes of silence without someone, friend, stranger, ex-relative, reaching out to check in. It started with DMs. Some were supportive. A guy named Marcus wrote, "Man, my family did the same thing at my brother's wedding. I've been no contact ever since. Watching your speech felt like justice." A woman said she watched the clip with her daughter and called it a masterclass in quiet dignity. That one stuck with me. Then came the weird ones. People offering interviews, podcast slots, even a YouTuber asking if I'd reenact the wedding speech for a family drama series. Someone sent a sponsorship pitch for a protein shake. I don't even work out. I didn't respond to most of them. But the real kicker? My Aunt Sharon. I hadn't heard from her since I was 19, when I missed a family Christmas party because I was working a double shift. She sent me a 2-line email back then that said, "Attendance is a choice. So is distance. Happy holidays." Now, she was in my inbox like nothing ever happened. "Hi, sweetheart. Just saw what happened online. So proud of you for standing up for yourself." We all knew something was wrong, but didn't know how to say it. "Let's catch up soon." Sure. Now they didn't know how to say it. Back then, silence was easier. The part no one tells you about standing up for yourself is this: it's lonely after the applause. The video goes viral, the messages roll in, people call you brave, but then your phone stops buzzing, and you realize how few people really meant it. That week, I muted half my notifications. Stopped opening messages unless they came from someone I knew personally. My apartment was quiet. Almost too quiet. Then, another text came through. Jake. My other brother. The one who'd been quiet through the whole wedding drama. The one who sat there at the reception and laughed, not hard but enough. "Hey man. Been thinking a lot about what happened. You free to talk?" I stared at the message for a while. When we were kids, Jake used to copy Zach. Not because he was mean, just because it was easier. Zach was louder, more loved. Following him meant staying out of trouble. Jake learned early that silence was survival. I never hated him for it. But I never forgot it either. I told him we could meet for coffee. Jake looked older than I remembered. Or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. He didn't open with excuses. "I should have said something," he said, eyes fixed on the table. "At the wedding. Before it. Years ago. I didn't say anything. I didn't know how to speak up without becoming the next you. Now that hit harder than it should have. It was just easier to laugh at Zach's jokes than to be the punchline, he said. But after that speech, I realized I'd been living on autopilot for years. I still didn't say anything. Because what do you say to someone who let you get humiliated 1,000 times and only noticed when the audience turned? He looked up. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to know you were right. About all of it. I nodded slowly. You're not the first person to tell me that this week. I bet, he said, almost smiling. You're the internet's favorite brother right now. Funny how that works, I said. You get ignored long enough, and suddenly people care when it's trending. You're not mad it happened that way? I'm mad it had to. We sat there a while. Two brothers who barely knew each other anymore, sipping coffee like strangers. But before we left, Jake reached into his pocket and handed me a folded paper. It's the speech, he said. Printed it out. It reminded me of something I wrote back in high school, but never had the guts to say. I took it. Didn't read it until later. But when I did, I felt something shift. Because Jake wasn't trying to re-enter my life as a brother. He was starting over as a witness. And that mattered. It was my mom who called first. Not to apologize. Not to ask how I was. She left a voicemail that started with, "We need to talk. It's gone too far." Gone too far. The irony nearly made me laugh. Apparently, her concern wasn't about me sitting at a fold-out by the trash can, it was about people seeing it. The story had spread far beyond our circle. By now, the clip of my speech had been stitched into TikToks, dissected on podcasts, even used as an example of boundaries done right on a therapy YouTube channel. Not because I was loud or dramatic, but because I was done. The internet loved it. My family didn't. A week later, I got a text from my dad. Let's meet. No drama. Just talk. Family stuff shouldn't be handled in front of strangers. Again, they only cared now that people were watching. Still, I said yes. Not for them. For me. We agreed to meet at a small cafe halfway between us. It was the kind of place that tried hard to look humble, chalkboard menus, mismatched mugs, but still charged $5 for a cup of drip coffee. They were already sitting when I walked in. Dad wore his usual button-down tucked too tight, trying to look important. Mom had a soft sweater and eyes rehearsing tears. They looked like the kind of people who knew they had to act sorry, but hadn't decided whether they actually were. I sat down. Didn't order anything. No one spoke for a few seconds. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. What happened at the wedding, that was uncalled for. I tilted my head. The table by the trash can, or the part where you expected me to pick up a $3,200 tab? He frowned. You know that wasn't personal. Zach was under pressure. Oh, come on, I said. You knew exactly what you were doing. That whole night was a performance. Just like every family dinner where you let Zach mock me and laughed. Just like every birthday where my gift was an afterthought. Mom leaned in, voice soft. We didn't know you felt that way. You didn't want to know, I replied. She looked down. Dad stayed quiet. You made it clear, over and over again, that Zach was the one you cared about. You gave him a car. I got a used coat. He got support when he failed. I got lectures when I succeeded. You didn't raise me. You tolerated me. My mom's eyes welled up. That's not true. Then where were you when I was working nights and studying during the day just to stay afloat? Where were you when Zach tanked his second startup and you begged me to help bail him out, even though you didn't bother showing up to my college graduation? Either of them spoke. You didn't even ask how I was doing at the wedding. You just pointed to a chair by the trash cans and expected me to smile through it. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We were trying to keep things simple. You made me feel like a stranger, I said. And now that the world saw it, you're embarrassed? Still silence. I stood up. You came here to patch your image, not our relationship. So let me be clear, I'm done pretending I had a family. I raised myself. And I'm not interested in pretending you were part of that journey. My mom stood too, almost instinctively. We can't go back, but maybe we can move forward. We're still your parents. No, I said. You're the people who showed me what kind of parent I'll never be. I turned and walked out. They didn't follow. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was walking away from family. I felt like I was finally walking toward myself. 3 months later, I got another wedding invitation. Not Zach's. This one came from Jake. It was simple, elegant, and arrived early, not scribbled together at the last minute. Inside, there was a short handwritten note. You'll be sitting at the family table. And I mean that this time. Jake had proposed to his longtime girlfriend, someone he'd quietly been dating for years, the kind of partner who didn't need to be posted on social media to prove they existed. After the drama at Zach's wedding, he'd started making changes. Real ones. Therapy. Boundaries. Distance from our parents. The wedding was small. Backyard ceremony, string lights, no rented vineyard or imported chairs. But it was the first family event I walked into without a knot in my chest. I wore a suit that actually fit for once. No plastic chair. No side tent. Jake met me at the gate with a hug, the real kind. Glad you came. Glad I was invited, I said. The reception tables were arranged in a wide U shape around a fire pit. Every seat had a name card. Mine was next to Jake's, directly across from his fiancée's grandmother. People smiled when I sat down. Not out of politeness, real smiles. People who saw me. People who remembered my name. The food was simple: barbecue, mac and cheese, cornbread. The best meal I'd had at a wedding, not because of the taste, but because I didn't feel like I had to earn a seat at the table. That alone would have been enough. But then, just as dessert was being served, I saw them. Zach. My mom. My dad. Standing near the edge of the property, not walking in. Not guests. Just watching. They weren't invited. Jake had made that clear. They'd made their stance known months ago. How disappointed they were in both of us. How humiliated. We made the family look. How ungrateful. We were for everything they'd done. But here they were. Outside the fence. I made eye contact with Zach. He didn't smile. Didn't wave. Just watched. Amanda wasn't with him. Someone came by with a tray of sparkling cider. I took one, then walked over to the edge of the lawn, stopping just before the fence line. They were maybe 20 feet away. We stood like that for a moment, two sides of a bloodline, separated not by distance, but by choices. My dad was the one who finally spoke. Looks like you've really found your place. I nodded slowly. Yeah. My mom cleared her throat. We didn't come to start anything. Good, I said. Because you're not invited. Zach narrowed his eyes. It's just weird, you know, he said. Seeing you at the head table. Like you belong there. I smiled. I do. There was nothing left to say after that. So I turned around. Walked back across the lawn. Past the twinkle lights. Back to the table with my name on it. I pulled out my chair, sat down, and picked up my drink. Jake raised his glass. To real family, he said. Chosen or not. We all toasted. As I looked around that table, the one I didn't have to fight for, I remembered sitting next to a trash can, holding a glass of water, pretending I didn't care. And now? Now I was at the center of the story. Not the footnote. Not the background. Not the afterthought. And when the check came this time? Jake stood, looked the waiter in the eye, and said, "That's our table." And I just smiled. Because he was right.